Jacksonville 1-10 all-time against New England. Their lone win, Tom Brady in a 1999 wild card game. Get in your zone with great value, offers, and free services that help your vehicle deliver its best performance. AutoZone has everything to get you what you need. Get in the zone, AutoZone. I'm Jeff Biggs, NBC Sports Radio.
All right, sure. Let's talk about what we just heard. I think Jacksonville has more than a puncher's chance. I'll tell you that much right now. I'll tell you that, what we heard on the Dan Patrick Show. Charlie Weiss Jr. being hired by Lane Kiffin. That is such a Lane Kiffin move, isn't it? Probably work. He's 10-3 last year, you know. Hey, I'm Marky Bilson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now on this 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, where we own the Tri-Cities, not only because we have the Atlanta Braves, not only because we have the best guests and the hardest-hitting opinions, but we have the best takes, the most knowledge of sports history, the most knowledge, the most intelligence, and dare I say, the wittiness. Not the that some people like to do. We're clever humor here. On today's program, Caleb Calhoun, allfortennessee.com. Boy, the Vols, a lot of news coming out of them. And thank goodness it's not recruiting. No, really. I mean, there are some, hey, they're targeting someone in the 2020 class. Truly, how good do you think this guy really is? And I know that's college football. I know that you've got to look that far ahead. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just not going to get that excited about some junior or sophomore. I'm not going to get excited about a sophomore in high school. I'm not. Or is he a junior now? He's currently a sophomore. I'm not going to get that excited about it. Unless I'm talking about high school football and saying, hey, that Brock Thompson, he'll be a sophomore next year for Unicoi County. That could be a coming player. If I'm Greenville, yeah, the Ballards all coming back. The three big guys they've got. Sure. Hey, maybe they could repeat. That's one thing. I'm not going gaga over someone who just finished their sophomore season playing for the Tennessee Volunteers. I'm not doing it. And we have so much overrating of recruiting. I talk about this a lot. But to the point where, you saw the Vols last year. They were 4-8. They lost every game in the SEC. They were the worst team in the conference. And you still get these people that will say, well, you know what? The 2014 recruiting class was number 5 in the country. So what? Derek Dooley never had a recruiting class less than 17. Maybe they got it wrong. Like Vols are preseason number 24. Like Florida State is preseason number 3. Maybe the recruiting ranking has as much weight as that. It's nice if you're Georgia and you're currently ranked number 1. Don't get me wrong. It's a show for, it's a positive sign. But for all we know, they may have class 130. They haven't come out and played yet. Anyway, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about ETSU. They've released their new football schedule. I'm also, and I talk about this, I'm going to be telling you about something that nobody else in the local media is able to tell you about, but it was the game, and it was a great game of the day in the state of Tennessee, and that was the Predators beating the Vegas Golden Knights 1-0 last night. Pull within 2 points in the Western Conference of first overall, and that's big. And it was a great game, and I'm going to tell you why later on in the program. But first I want to talk about something going on here locally. A lot of talk outside of sports, of course, about Mountain States Health Alliance and Wellmont merging to form, I believe, Ballard. Okay. And that does have a sports element to it, because if that happens, what will the Minidome be called? 2009, then ETSU President Paul Stanton, in one of his many less than well thought out moves affecting Buccaneer athletics, changed the name of Memorial Center to the Mountain States Health Alliance Athletic Center. In an era in which ETSU has received millions of dollars for their naming rights for their new football stadium, MSHA paid absolutely no money to have their moniker on what is arguably, now let's not say it's arguably, it is the most recognizable structure in Johnson City, Tennessee, for better or for worse. And MSHA got personal use of this structure as their own billboard, and they didn't even have to pay a penny for it, thanks to Paul Stanton. Boy, I want him, I want to be on his Christmas list. Now, in my opinion, Brian Nolan sold his soul for a few pieces of silver, actually a few million pieces of silver, by selling the naming rights of the new football stadium instead of celebrating a great ETSU athletic figure and putting that person's name on the yard. But at least Nolan got a few pieces of silver for his soul. Stanton gave his soul away. Absolutely nothing in return. And you know, as drab as Memorial Center might be, it does honor veterans. It does honor, the deceased. I've lost so many relatives this past year that were close to me. Yeah, Memorial Center. Let's remember them. Mountain States Health Alliance Athletic Center. Nobody calls it that. It's too wordy. It's too long. It forces a polarizing business down the ETSU fans' throat. So, if Ballard is to happen, why not take that opportunity, do the right thing, and pull MSHA off the building? And you know where I'm going. Name the place after John Robert Bell. I've been on this, and it needs to happen. Say what you will about the Minidome, but it's the most prominent and famous building in Johnson City, as I just said. And it was also heavily pushed for by John Robert Bell, lo those 40 years ago. And Bell's name is on the street that the facility sits on. Well, one of the streets. Okay, yeah. It's also State of Franklin, and, But anyhow, but if you're not familiar, by the way, with Bell, he was the head coach of the 1969 Grantland Rice Bowl champion East Tennessee State Buccaneers, which is generally regarded as the program's greatest team. But more than that, it was his character. And, I've been professional sports media since the beginning, January 3rd, 1992. Color commentating for a high school basketball game for $15 on Christmas break from college. That was my first professional entity into the sports media, college media. I was there before. So I've been doing this myself now, 30 years. I've met, obviously, all sorts of people. I've been everywhere from covering New York baseball to articles on SI.com that get talked about on ESPN, national attention, to, the smallest of entities, writing about the sport of pickleball or something. So I've done it all, patting myself on the back. But in all the people that, thousands, John Robert Bell, absolutely the nicest sports figure I've ever met. Absolutely. Part of ETSU. And he deserves to be mentioned. Anyone who knew him from his character will tell you this. Represents the best of the area. Unquestionably. Coached the first black player, John Rushot, at ETSU. Coached the women's basketball team for a season, in fact. That was Coach Bell. In fact, I often think, for better or worse, depending on where your politics lie, he helped, in more modern times, get a mayor elected. Pete Paduch in Johnson City was heavily helped because, Paduch, he's a guy who'll tell you like it is. He doesn't care about hurting your feelings, right? Having the endorsement of John Robert Bell for Pete Paduch easily helped him get on city council and then ultimately in the mayor's office, as the mayor is selected by the city council in Johnson City, not elected directly. So these are reasons why I think Bell should be, perhaps not because of his political endorsements, but because of the character of the man, remembered more than just a street on the ETSU campus. I've pushed for the new football stadium to be called Bell Green Stadium. And that's about the last time you're going to hear me call it by its official name. Otherwise, on the show, it's the stadium that should be named after John Robert Bell. But the thought did occur. If the Minidome, if you can't call it the MSHA, facility, alliance, structure, dome that really is technically a vault if you want to look at it, because the Houston Astrodome is a dome, and the actual structure and architecture of this says it's a vault. By the way, in about 15 years ago in sports talk, I used to try to get the Minidome, I instead of calling it the Minidome, because it's technically not correct, I tried to get it called, and you want to talk about, positive energy to ETSU, the Vault of Victory. This was during a time where ETSU won 23 straight men's basketball games at the place. The Vault of Victory. I thought that was just great. And I do know that there was one sportscaster, and I can't name him, but there was one guy who picked up on it and called it the Victory Vault. Maybe not the Vault of Victory. Yeah, I'm being wordy here. After all, I'm on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. But that is in no shape, that name, as wordy as the MSHA. No, let's tell it here. The Mountain States Health Alliance Athletic Center. This is why I always call it the Minidome nowadays. I mean, because what am I going to do? Push Vault of Victory? What's he talking about? Vault of Victory. We are having from Carolyn Wolf Pridemore on our Facebook Live a positive reaction to the name Vault of Victory. Anyway. Now, Nolan has said, by the way, when I'm talking about renaming the Minidome, that ETSU football isn't going to return to the Minidome, and it shouldn't. The New England Patriots are not returning to Fenway Park, okay? But here's the thing with the Minidome. There is a feeling of subservience to a high school when the Bucks play basketball at Freedom Hall. And that has plagued ETSU for a long time. Subservience to Science Hill. We can argue to what strength, but I do remember back in the 90s when on another radio station, Science Hill games preempted ETSU games, and this is just a few years after ETSU was in their run of 4 straight NCAA tournaments on the radio. They were called subservient to a high school. The people that wanted George Pitts to coach the Bucks, that's subservience to a high school. Now, also, Steve Forbes doesn't have 100% scheduling flexibility at Freedom Hall. He doesn't have the last word. So if he's like, boy, we got this home and home with North Carolina. This is great, but North Carolina can only do this date. Sorry, Steve, we've got the Ice Capades on that day. Can't help you out. You lose that. That's one of the other problems with Freedom Hall. I think Freedom Hall, there's no event status. Great sightlines, don't get me wrong, but there's no event. There's nothing around Freedom Hall. There's stuff around the Minidome. Nothing around Freedom Hall. You can't have the evening out on the town and go to Freedom Hall. And that's big for sports in 2018. It may not have been big for sports in 1974 when the place was built. But in this day and age, we want to go out and have dinner before the game and then go to the game and then maybe have a drink afterwards or something. If it's a weekend night, go dancing. I mean, that's the night on the town. Go to the movies, whatever. I know there's not a movie theater near ETSU, but you get my point that I'm trying to make. Now, but there are some things, so I'm saying that it's not necessarily unheard of that ETSU could play basketball or other sports at the Minidome. Plus, it'll always be a practice facility. Last year, when Tennessee came in to play the Lady Bucks, they played the game at the Minidome. Worked out well. So the last ETSU game, if you will, has probably not been played there. And you know what? As I said, Bell had coached the women's basketball team. So if it's going to be an occasional thing that the Lady Bucks will play there for whatever reason, yeah, maybe they ought to name it after Bell. Now, athletic director Scott Carter has said on this show he wants to honor Bell in an additional way. I don't know what that is. Would that be putting the name? I hate this, naming the field. I know that Florida did that with Steve Spurrier and all that. The field at the Minidome is called Gentry Field. I have no idea who Gentry is, and I'm a guy who eats up sports history. The circumstance also comes out where I would like maybe Bell Green Stadium, Green Bell Stadium, a statue, that's one other thing. Or what about renaming, the Minidome, this other stadium that he pushed for? That sounds appropriate, doesn't it? So in lieu of Bell Green Stadium, why not name another prominent athletic facility, as I said, one that he pushed for, one that the football team played in for more than a quarter of a century, his team, after the program's most beloved figure. Especially since there are no financial ties to MSHA, which is likely going to become a thing of the past. The current ETSU athletic administration has righted so many wrongs of the previous athletic administration. Putting Bell's name on the Minidome, yeah, that'd be another such accomplishment. Hey, this just in, and boy, I know I've been talking about the Steelers too much here, the old guy from Pittsburgh. I do get that, but this just in, Todd Haley out as offensive coordinator of the Steelers. That's a good move. He just put up 42 points against the Jaguars. Get rid of him. Don't get rid of anybody on defense that had 45 points allowed. Don't get rid of your head coach who has absolutely no discipline, who has absolutely no idea about what strategy is, who uses over the course of a season the word obviously 200 times in press conferences, and you want to get on 5-star hearts for Butch Jones? Oh, that's legitimate, but what about Tomlin? And I know that that's, a large point of the fan base that I'm talking to right now. It's like, well, who really cares? That's not my team, the Steelers. But I know that it's a popular team out there, and it is breaking NFL news. Todd Haley out as head coach, as offensive coordinator of the Steelers. You know something about Todd Haley? I can remember when he was the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, and with less of a team, a 4-12 team beat the Steelers, knocked them out of the playoffs in overtime. I think they're getting rid of the wrong coach. I'll talk to you more about that. ETSU is getting a new football coach, Randy Sanders. You know about that. I'll tell you about the schedule that he will play when we come back after this.